In the pantheon of American presidents, perhaps no one was better prepared for the job than Dwight D. Eisenhower. Today's guest reminds us of the principles that guided Ike's leadership, both in war and in peace. She's Susan Eisenhower, this week on Story in the Public Square. Hello and welcome to Story in the Public Square, where storytelling meets public affairs. I'm Jim Ludis from the Pell Center at Salve Regina University. Joining me as he does every week in the co-host chair is my great friend and colleague, G. Wayne Miller of the Providence Journal. Each week we talk about big issues with great guests, storytellers, scholars, journalists, and more to make sense of the big stories shaping the United States today. This week we're joined by Susan Eisenhower, co-founder of the Eisenhower Institute at Gettysburg College, and the author of a new book, How Ike Led, the principles behind Eisenhower's biggest decisions. Susan, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be with you and Wayne.
Well, there's so much that we want to talk to you about, but let's start with the book. It's a tremendous read. Give our audience, if you would, just the 30,000 foot view of it.
Well, I think a lot of people can't figure out whether it's a biography or a history or a memoir or what it is, but I think it's actually a leadership book, and I've just tackled it in a slightly different way. You know, as they say in journalism, show me, don't tell me. So I thought I would show leadership instead of, offering like a 10-point plan you can take away from Eisenhower's leadership, just to do it through storytelling, actually, which is why I'm so thrilled to be on this program.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And, I'm a fan of President Eisenhower's and wrote my doctoral dissertation about his foreign policy. I've always found it sort of almost seductive to read a biography like this and to try to think about whether or not their lessons, their leadership are as applicable today as it was when they were actually in office. What's the specific challenge that you faced as a scholar writing this, mindful of the world that we're living in today?
Well, I'd actually say that I'm a former journalist rather than a scholar, although having spent a lot of time in the think tank community, I certainly got used to filling in footnotes every 5 minutes. Um, but, I think one of the biggest challenges was to merge my relationship with my grandfather in some ways and allow it to inform the work. Because I've spent my whole life trying to keep a firewall up in some way emotionally. And I decided to, take a risk and put these things two together. In places, it was hard for me to write because it dredged up a lot of things about him that I missed desperately. And then on the other hand, though in the actual substance of the book, I didn't have a problem with reading critical analysis of him at all because I was used to that and taught to be able to handle it. But still, there was some emotion in this book, I'll say that.
So there's an old line that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And a number of the challenges that President Eisenhower faced during his presidency are challenges that we're seeing today, obviously many, many years later, but the same essential issues. Maybe you can talk about some of those, starting with civil rights.
Hmm.
And
Well,
we're here in the we're here during a period of Black Lives Matter and a whole re-examination and a refreshment of that movement. So talk about the parallel there between your grandfather and today.
well, I think it's a great question, Wayne. And one of the things that I think is very important in thinking about his career and how he handled issues as serious as the civil rights question is that he was so used to making, enormous consequential decisions as he was compelled to do during World War II as Supreme Allied Commander of Forces in Europe. And then during his presidency, he was confronted with a completely new change in how wars were going to be fought in the future because of the advent of the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. So I wanted readers to know that Dwight Eisenhower, the general, and Dwight Eisenhower, the president, was the same person. Now, the reason I gave you that little prelude to civil rights is that he looked at strategic questions as a military person would do, starting with what do you control?